Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together. Thank you for joining us. We are back from the Nordic countries. We spent our week or so studying the Nordic countries and really just watching Frozen over and over again.
I mean, really, our 5-year-old was like, she kept looking at her older sister. She goes, "Sister,
It's time for Frozen.
We have to watch it. It's for homeschool." So her older sister was like, "Is it required?" I'm like, well, kind of what we signed up for. So this week we did Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and Norway. It was a really fun time. This is one that we looked forward to last time. Last time we created our own little snack box based off of a trip to IKEA, which I highly recommend. This time we couldn't get down to IKEA, but we did eat some great food. We read some great books and watched a couple of fun movies.
So let's go into it. A little bit of a chapter book, The Children of the Noisy Village.
Yep, so this is the book recommended from Build Your Library. This is a cute little story. We read this the last time through, and this time I got it on audiobook. And so our girls were able to listen to it while we did Lego, which is from Denmark, so that was kind of fun. But it's the story of these Swedish children that live at these 3 adjoining houses in the countryside. And it's just all like, just very wholesome, kind of, it reminds me almost of like Boxcar Children type thing, in which they get into, little bits of trouble, or it's all very...
But nothing too serious.
Nothing too serious. You learn some good things about their culture. It's just a sweet, I don't know, it says on the back, a timeless story, and it kind of is. Our kids have loved it. They loved it last time, this time too. I think they can really relate to the adventures of these children together. So,
well, she also wrote Pippi Longstocking, which is kind of famous, so... Yep.
Anyway, this is a solid choice, and if you can do the audio, it's a pretty short audiobook. It's not a long read otherwise, but the audio was really good.
Nordic tales, folk tales, from Norway, Sweden, Finland, Iceland, and Denmark. I liked this book.
Yes, we're not big folktale people, as you know.
As you know.
But this one was really good. All of the stories are only a couple pages long, and they've got the title of the country. So we just did a collection. I read one from Finland and Sweden, and you read some from Norway.
I had a Norway one that I read as well. So we just kind of picked and choose, so you could just enjoy the ones you want.
Yeah, I think this is a really fun one. There's a couple of different folktale books. There's, A Year Full of Stories, and there's some different ones. But if you want one that just focuses on this area, I think this is a great selection, and especially since the stories aren't too long, this definitely makes my cut.
You can see it was a little bit of reading. Like, the pages are big, it's just blocks of text. So you do want to make sure your reader's okay with that. But yeah, for the most part, the stories are very straightforward.
Like 3 pages maybe?
Yeah, great to be able to pause and ask questions and whatnot, whatever's happening. So real fun, real creative, and you can see some similarities with some classic folk tales from that area. So yeah, we really enjoyed this one. This is a good one, I think, to check out.
Yeah, definitely get this one from the library.
The Tom 10 and the Fox.
There's a few different Tom 10 books. This is the one that our library had, the Tom 10 and the Fox, and it's a story about a fox who keeps trying to steal food from a farm.
It's our friend from Astrid from...
Right, the same one that wrote Children of Noisy Village, and the fox is trying to get the chickens, and it keeps trying to steal food, and the Tom 10 is this little gnome that is, feeding the fox the porridge, and it's a folk tale from Sweden, and it's just cute.
It's just an easy, quick read. It's really cute.
Yeah, I think if your library doesn't have it, I wouldn't say that it's worth buying. But if your library's got it, definitely go for it because it was cute.
So Jan Brett, Trouble with Trolls.
Actually, our daughter really liked this. Of course, all the Jan Brett books have really wonderful art. Yeah. It's all the border art that really is great.
Yeah, the detail around the borders is just amazing.
Yeah, it's super cute story about a girl going up the mountain and the trolls who keep trying to steal her dog, and she keeps tricking them and getting them to take her ski gear instead. And it's funny because as an adult, you can see how it escalates, and each troll, she tricks them to take a different piece of her clothing instead of the dog. You don't want this dog. Don't take my favorite hat. And they're like, oh, the hat, so and they want the hat instead of the dog, and you can see how it's going. But it's really fun to watch my 5-year-old just be riveted. Like, she does not know what's going to happen with these trolls. And you can clearly see, like, the kid's losing.
She's bought into the trickster tales.
Yeah, every troll she meets, she loses another, piece of her ski set, to get the dog back. And eventually, she's got to get the ski stuff back out of the dog. And so you can see the whole thing coming, but not the little ones. This is just magic for them. So if you can't find this Jan Brett book, there's a few of them that are great. Not all of them are set in Scandinavia, so do be aware some of them are not set there. But if you can find one, I think there's a couple. The Mitten maybe is another one.
Yep.
So they're all good.
Little People, Big Dreams. Hans Christian Andersen. Kind of a theme that we had this week with doing the folk tales and the fairy tales, and Hans Christian Andersen was kind of the centerpiece of that.
Right, yeah, our daughters really love, our younger daughter especially loves fairy tales, and so we thought this would be really fun. Hans Christian Andersen wrote The Ugly Duckling and The Little Mermaid, The Princess and the Pea, so there's lots of popular stories there that we wanted to lean into, so we got this book to read about his life. This was the first thing that we did, and this one was good.
These are always really good books. We've covered these before, The Little People, Big Dreams. If you're studying an area that has a really, really famous person, make sure to keep this in mind if you want to kind of center your week or two on having somebody, having a little bit of a biography. These books are just fantastic.
Yep.
And then you got the tales from Hans Christian Andersen here.
So these are not the originals. These are kid-friendly abridgments of the original stories that are pretty short. They're like all 2 pages or so. We were upset to learn that The Little Mermaid wasn't in here because that was the one that my daughter was looking forward to the most. She really wanted to hear what the original story of The Little Mermaid was like. And because we'd planned to watch the movie, so I couldn't find it in here. Luckily, these are all open source, so what I was able to do is I found an open source version on the web. I copied it into ChatGPT and asked for it to give me a retelling age appropriate for like a second grader, and it did a great job, a faithful retelling, and so I was able to read that to my girls because it wasn't in this book. This is a good book, The Princess and the Pea. We read about half of the stories in this book, and they were all very good. So it's a good retelling.
And we had a good podcast a couple weeks ago about how to do that with the audio with ChatGPT, and I'll go ahead and link that in the show notes below, and you guys can check that out on your own time. It's nice
because then ChatGPT can read them a story.
Absolutely.
So this worked out really well. And then after reading this, we went ahead and watched and did the ChatGPT version. We went ahead and watched The Little Mermaid, and we talked about.
You watched the newer live action one.
We did. Only because we have seen the original Little Mermaid countless times. We've watched it a ton. And because we were doing this kind of comparison about like what was different between the Disney version and the Hans Christian Andersen original version, I thought it would be fun. You're hearing our Labrador Retriever there who snuck into this room before we started recording this.
She's right here. She's getting her butt wiggles. Butt itchies right here.
So, pardon us. So because we were already doing this kind of compare and contrast exercise, we thought it would be fun to watch the live action version and then talk about how is it different from the Hans Christian Andersen and how is it different from the animated classic. So that made for a lot of fun discussion, and our 5-year-old kept pointing out every single inconsistency through the whole thing. And then she's disappointed.
In the movie adaptations of books, she's going to be very disappointed when she gets older.
Yes. So to finish our Hans Christian Andersen, we did that, and then we watched
Danny Kaye
version. Oh yeah, the White Christmas. So we watched the old Danny Kaye Hans Christian Andersen, which I have to admit I've never seen. It was really cheesy. And we didn't really dig it that much. And we're big musical people, so...
But it was a story of Hans Christian Andersen?
Yes, it was the story of his life, but it was kind of a fanciful retelling of his story. It wasn't all, like, super faithful.
But Danny Kaye's great.
A couple of the songs were cute, but Did
he do his singing and dancing thing?
No, he didn't do much dancing, which was kind of a bummer. I mean, really, Danny Kaye's known for the dancing. Anyway, this was pretty cheesy.
That's a miss.
But if it's one that you and your family like, then definitely watch it for this because that would tie in very well. But for us, it was kind of a swing and a miss.
You're just saying go watch White Christmas.
I would just...
Sister.
So the other option you could do, The Princess and the Pea, you could watch Once Upon a Mattress. I know there was a Disney Family version made of that, which is a great musical based on The Princess and the Pea, so you could try that too. But yeah, and then, of course, the Frozens.
Frozens. 1 and 2.
And all the music. All week. So there's that as well. So... moving on to our biome.
Moving on. We went ahead and studied basically the boreal forest was our main focus.
Yeah, the taiga.
For the taiga was our main focus, which is kind of the northern latitudes, the massive forest belt that covers basically Russia through Scandinavia into Canada. So there's a lot of material on that, but it does hop between countries, but it all kind of has the same thing. And we have this first book, The Taiga, Discover the Forested Biome.
So yeah, as we cover these biomes, we're just taking little snippets from each of these books. So this was a good book to start with and introduce the topic to the girls.
Yeah, just understanding what a boreal forest is really amazing. One of the things that I think I didn't appreciate as much as how large it is. It's just absolutely amazing. And I was actually kind of blown away at the size and a lot of the really cool facts. It's a very short growing season. That was kind of cool. Having our daughters understand how short of a season that is. Like some places like 1 or 2 months. They were kind of blown away that the summers were only that short, and then the days were so short. And so then we got a little bit talking about the tilt of the planet and different seasons, and so really kind of gets you going on kind of a deep dive on this. So yeah, we studied the taiga, a lot of cool animals as well. So if you're looking for animals, we have another book here called The Boreal Forest: A Year in the World's Largest Biome. I liked this book because one of the stories about the taiga is the fact that the boreal forest is that they are so season dependent, and they have very big stories to be told depending on what seasons they are, whether it's the very, very short summer where they're trying to grow as fast as possible, or the bitter cold winter where they're just trying to survive, and then the little bit of time in between where it gets a little wet. Really cool stories about that, and they did tell it in terms of the seasons. And then they were also hopping across different countries. So if you're thinking about doing boreal forest, but you want to do it for Canada, great book for that. If you're doing it because you're in Russia or northern China or northern Japan, that's another good example there. Or if you're doing the Scandinavian countries like we are doing, you can do it there as well. So great book that kind of touches on all those big countries in the northern latitudes that cover and have boreal forests. This is a great book for that, so you can pick and choose wherever you want to do it.
I loved that it gave the list of the countries. I was like, oh, you know what we're doing.
Exactly.
Thank you to the authors.
Absolutely. So not to be missed, our foodies as we are, what did we eat? You made a wonderful Swedish meatball dish.
I did. So there's a Swedish meatballs recipe in Cooking Class Global Feast, the book. But it's basically beef stock and heavy cream and soy sauce. And I remember making it last time and being like, it just lacked some complexity. Like, it was okay, but not amazing. This time I found a recipe online that we used their same recipe for the meatballs out of the Cooking Class Global Feast. I think we did. Well, I know we did. Maybe we didn't. We used a half pork, half...
when you're doing meatballs,
half pork, half beef.
That's a big thing. I don't know if you guys do that. We have always been doing it for the longest time. It's a half beef, half pork, ground pork, and you mix the two together. They are far superior than any other type of meatball out there.
So I think
your meatballs are just the best.
I think we did probably use that recipe out of that. But then I used a different recipe online for the sauce, which was still beef broth and heavy cream, but also included some Worcestershire sauce and some sour cream and a few seasonings. And they turned out really phenomenal.
Even our picky 5-year-old loved it. Like, she went all ham for it. I was blown away. It's like it's in her very limited scope of meals that she'll eat. We have now added another one. We're very lucky.
She really loved it. It turned out great. It was very easy. So I'll put the recipe in the show notes. And then we also made a Swedish chocolate cake. I will not butcher the name of that because it was not easy to say.
It was really just a brownie.
It was like a brownie, but a very good brownie.
I mean, I'm not complaining.
I
devoured it.
Yeah. Jinx. You owe me a Coke. So it was really great. So we made that one night, and that was our big meal that we did, and it was fun because the girls were able to help me, and everybody enjoyed it. So
it was a good meal. It was a good stop. It was a good stay. I think the girls really enjoyed it. We kind of kept it loose. We focused on the Hans Christian Andersen.
You watched lots of great taiga videos.
We watched some taiga videos as well. Just did some simple Google searches on the YouTube for boreal forest, and you'll get a ton of stuff there.
And we watched videos on Norway and Oslo. So there's a lot of good stuff in our resource guides for these countries that you can expand upon.
There's a great Werner Herzog documentary called The Taiga that Ariel I know would love. And you know, as much as if you've been following along, bless your heart, you know that we don't like folk tales, and Ariel doesn't like Werner Herzog movies. And I like Werner Herzog movies. So there's one called The Taiga, and I'll link that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, if you're so inclined.
I did a pretty good impression in the car the other day.
We're not going to do it
I
now.
won't do it here.
So stay with us. We're going to be on to Italy next.
2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks, because there's just 1 week is not enough time for all the food.
All the food.
It's really about that.
We have to prepare.
Your family is Italian, and our kids are going to be staying with your mom for 2 days during the middle of this, and she already has a whole pasta plan, she calls it. So I'm sure they're going to be eating well when they're staying with Grandma.
The pasta plan.
Yeah. So
Good
I'm
carbonara.
sure we'll have a good time with Italy. So stay tuned, and thanks for following along.